burden on your shoulders. Hello, your beautiful face. Excuse me, can I have power, please? Power? Oh yeah, welcome. Good evening. Welcome, my beautiful family and friends here on Africa Rise TV. It's a beautiful Sunday here in London, and I do hope that wherever you're joining us from, that it is a beautiful Sunday, that it started good, and that it remains good. I know you're hearing a little bit of sound from the background. I'm going to kill the sound. I'm going to ask them to kill the sound. It's my birthday tomorrow. So my family is basically starting early because it's Monday and they say you must have a good time today. So bear with me. We're feeling irate, like Lucky Dube says. Oh, no matter how hard you try, as Africans, welcome. So as you join the broadcast today, do well to share, invite your friends, and send in your comments, okay? The broadcast today is not going to be very long. We're going to try to keep it as short as possible. But what we're going to do is to refresh our memory, our minds, that we should never forget, and begin to understand the politics as regards the international community and Africa, the way they view Africa, the way they deem Africa, and the way they treat Africa. And of course, with what is going on currently in Europe with the, Russia and Ukraine, you begin to see how power play comes into light and how it's so easy when it concerns Africa for these people to just come in because they just come and attack. They do whatever they want on our land, on our soil. They kill our leaders. They assassinate them. They do whatever they will, and no one questions them because it is Africa. And now it is in their terrain, and we're hearing all sorts of excuses and reasons why they will not confront a nation who has attacked another sovereign nation. So just to refresh our minds so that we begin to, of course, remember and understand that even though we also as Africans have been used to demonize some of our leaders who meant well for us, that it's not always the case because we were brainwashed watching Western media and listening to narratives by Western media. And so we had this opinion of people who meant well for Africa, who meant that Africa would rise, that Africa should rise, and wanted to do everything in their power to make sure that Africa rose again. I use the word rose again because we were the first civilization, okay? So there have been times where other countries have come up great and they no longer are relevant in the scope of things. But now, so Africa will rise again. But we need to begin to understand the politics that it is when it concerns Africa. So I'm just going to take a video, and as I play that video, it will refresh our memory, and then we will go into just, bringing our comments.
According to some, it's about protecting civilians.
And our resolve is clear. The people of Libya must be protected.
Others say it's about oil.
The only reason they're interested with Libya is about the oil. You think we'd be in Iraq if the major export there was broccoli?
But some are convinced intervention in Libya is all about currency, specifically Gaddafi's plan to introduce the gold dinar, a single African currency made from gold, a true sharing of the wealth.
It's one of these things that you have to plan almost in secret, because as soon as you say you're going to change over from the dollar to something else, you're going to be targeted. There were two conferences on this, one in 96 and another one in the year 2000, called the World Mataba Conference, organized by Gaddafi. And everybody was interested. I think most countries in Africa were keen.
Gaddafi didn't give up. In the months leading up to the military intervention, he called on African and Muslim nations to join together to create this new currency that would rival the dollar and euro. They would sell oil and other resources around the world only for gold dinars. It's an idea that would shift the economic balance of the world. Countries' wealth would depend on how much gold they have, not how many dollars they trade. And Libya has 144 tons of gold. The UK has double that, but 10 times the population.
If Gaddafi had an intent to try to reprice his oil or whatever else the country was selling in the global markets and accept something else as a currency, or maybe launch a gold dinar currency, any move such as that would certainly not be welcomed by the power elite today who are responsible for controlling the world's central banks. So yes, that would certainly be something that would cause his immediate dismissal and the need for other reasons to be brought forth for removing him from power.
It's happened before. In 2000, Saddam Hussein announced Iraqi oil would be traded in euros, not dollars. Sanctions and an invasion followed. Some say because the Americans were desperate to prevent OPEC from transferring oil trading in all its member countries to the euro. A gold dinar would have had serious consequences for the world financial system, but may also have empowered the people of Africa, something black activists say the US wants to avoid at all costs.
The United States should welcome the self-determination of Africans. They certainly have denied self-determination to Africans inside the United States, so we're not surprised by anything that the United States would do to hinder self-determination of Africans on the continent.
The UK's gold is kept here in a secure vault somewhere in the depths of the Bank of England. As in most developed countries, there's not enough to go around. But that's not the case in places like Libya and many of the Gulf states. A gold dinar would have given oil-rich African and Middle Eastern countries the power to turn around to their energy-hungry customers and say, sorry, the price has gone up and we want gold. Some say the US and its NATO allies literally couldn't afford to let that happen. Laura Emmett, RT, London.
So yes, the reason I had to play that is because we want to look at the dynamics of what's going on in Europe right now and how it would have been played out on the African continent if it were to be an African state that is in question. Remember that before the war in Ukraine broke out, there have been wars on the African continent, like in Ethiopia. Like you will find, even though it is not yet termed a war, but what is going on in many West African countries and even Central Africa. I mean, the things that play out there are not issues that is fermented by the people themselves. We are fighting wars that we don't even understand why we're fighting each other. We're not fighting Europeans. We're not fighting anybody but ourselves. But if we came to the table to ask ourselves the reason why we're fighting, then we'll begin to, if we could come to the table and have that conversation, then we'll suddenly realize what foolishness it has been. Because you can see what's going on. Have you listened to the commentaries from France, from Europe generally, when they say these are people like us? They're making reference to the Ukrainians, and for them it's like these are blonde hair, blue-eyed human beings like us. What they are saying is that these are not black people, these are not Africans, because it's supposed to be a normality, it's supposed to be normal when wars are fought in Africa in this generation, in this dispensation. It is supposed to be a norm when we fight, we take guns and we kill ourselves. But when it comes to Europe, the first thing they begin to talk about is that these are people like us. And then NATO, mighty powerful NATO, begins to cower. NATO does not want, according to what they're saying, does not want to get into Ukraine to fight for Ukraine, because then it will be a situation where NATO is going to have to confront Russia. But guess what? NATO was formed as an alliance to protect those countries that are members of NATO against Russia. But they're so, you can see the dilly-dallying, the game they're playing with now accepting Ukraine into NATO because they don't want that burden. They don't want that burden. But NATO was used in attacking Libya. Libya is an African state. NATO was not an alliance that was formed against the protection of their members from Africa. But NATO was used to attack Africa and made sure that the country's leader was assassinated, killed, and that country was decimated and their gold was made away with. After you've watched this video, you can understand, of course, what Gaddafi was up to. And for that, the moment it was made, it came to their knowledge, it spelled doom for him. It was almost like you could say that his death warrant was signed the moment they knew about it. So until we begin to have some kind of sense to understanding, because when you listen or you watch commentaries on social media, especially about Africans, the way we take sides when it concerns Europe, we're all about, we're quick to put on our profile photos, support for this nation and that nation, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, even in this time that people are suffering in Ukraine, there was still discrimination against Black people or people of color. So this thing is important to them. It is so important to them that even in the face of death, the first thing they think about is how to discriminate against these people. So when we begin to understand the politics that is going on, you see, the West have tried to force, countries like India to take a stand, to make sure that they know where they stand, to say that, are you with us or are you with Russia? And India has abstained. And we haven't seen any kind of statements forcing India that you must take a stand. Why? Because India, no matter how you look at it, is a world power. Yes, it is. And so India has certain leverage or powers that no African country has. So they listen to India. They listen to even Pakistan. Forget about the fact that they call them a terrorist state. So when you begin to see how they see us as Africans, how they disregard us in everything that concerns us, how easy it is for them to come up with whatever decisions they want to make, and it's always a unanimous decision. It's not something that we come and consult with our leaders. Then we begin to, of course, understand that until we put our act together, until we come together as one people and put our act together, we will never be respected. We will never be given the kind of place that we deserve. We need to get up and take it. We need to get up and take it. This is not a time to be afraid of repercussions. We haven't hurt anybody, yet we are the ones so afraid to take our destiny in our own hands. I'm going to play another video, and in the video, bear with me a moment. Yes. Welcome everyone. Yes, I'm going to take Wilma Yusuf, Conquering Lion, Rastafari, he says, Angela Wilbur Presley from Pretoria. Good evening to you, Wangu Vugu. And Moses Koroma says, we are suffering in Sierra Leone. No water, no light, no fuel. I can imagine that. It is not only in Sierra Leone, it happens everywhere on the African continent. Maybe a little less in other countries like South Africa and Northern African states. And then Abdul Mugiz, welcome. James Tetty, James 30, he's just mentioning someone, right? Okay, I'm gonna keep WSR1. Yes. Welcome, Idris Fado. Welcome all of you. WSR1 says, deep-rooted European racism and discrimination against Africans, Asians played out on the gallery within Ukrainian borders. Absolutely. And even with all those videos going around and showing how Black people were treated, I find people on social media, Africans, making all these arguments and debates in favor of the people who are, responsible for this thing. But before we carry on, I'm going to play the second video. Let me see. Bear with me a moment. Yes, this should be the one.
Who gave coalition forces in Libya the right to eliminate Gaddafi? Well, that's the question Vladimir Putin's been asking during an official visit to Denmark. The Russian premier also said NATO has effectively joined one of the warring sides in the conflict, and more responsible action should be taken instead. RT's Daniel Bushell joins us now live for this in Brussels. Daniel, so the Russian Prime Minister has effectively lashed out on the operation there in Libya.
Yes, he's made the speech in Denmark and he was very angry. He says that Gaddafi is not the best person in the world. Sure, he's made many mistakes, done many bad things, but that does not give the coalition the right to bomb indiscriminately. His words were that they are bombing Gaddafi's palaces in Tripoli every night. Now, coalition said that their plan was not to get rid of Gaddafi. So his question was, Mr. Putin's question was, why are the coalition forces obviously making this effort to go after Colonel Gaddafi himself? Now, we also heard that the experts here in Brussels have confirmed that there is bombing going on by the coalition forces, which is not being covered by the media here in the European Union. Mr. Putin added that oil was a key interest for the Western powers, for the European powers who have gone into Libya, that they want to get rid of Gaddafi and install people who are more favourable to the European Union so that European companies can control the oil reserves. Let's have a listen to exactly what Mr. Putin had to say.
The coalition said destroying Gaddafi was not their goal. Then why bomb his palaces? Now some officials have claimed that eliminating him was in fact their goal. Who gave them that right? Did he have a fair trial? Returning to the no-fly zone, the bombings are destroying the country's entire infrastructure. When the so-called civilized world uses all its military power against a small country destroying what's been created by generations, I don't know if that's good.
Mr. Putin said that they have to give the Libyan people time to sort out their own problems, and there's really double standards here, he added. There are several other parts of the region in the Middle East and North Africa which is facing pretty much civil war situations, but which the West is either ignoring or not really paying the same amount of attention to.
Well, Daniel, there have been reports about an EU plan to send army convoys to assist humanitarian aid there in Libya. Of course, there'll be those who say, well, this is really the start of a military ground operation, something, of course, that allies were adamant wouldn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard these rumours for the first time a few weeks ago that the EU plans to send up to 1,000 troops under the guise of so-called humanitarian aid. Russia fears that this will be used to plan an invasion and to carry out an invasion of Libya on the pretext of supporting humanitarian aid to the Libyan people. The draft plan is called EU4Libya. It's supported by the 27 member states of the European Union, prepared by them, and it provides for ground troops, in fact, to be deployed by the Western coalition. In the port city of Misrata, which is currently under siege by forces loyal to Muammar Gaddafi, here in Brussels, Michael Mann, the chief spokesman to the European Union High Representative Catherine Ashton, said that they would only send up to 1,000 troops, and the troops would only be used if they came under attack. Otherwise, they would only defend aid. Now, Russia has said that it will only support another UN resolution if it explicitly says that it will not continue the violence, that if it ends the violence and starts negotiations, then that is the only condition under which they would support that. Now, I've been speaking to military analysts here in Brussels, and they confirm that ground troops are already in operation in Libya. This is not being covered by the media in the European Union, but troops are already in operation, and they are pushing forward in Libya with Colonel Gaddafi as the target.
Daniel, thanks very much indeed for that. That's Daniel Bush.
All right. You see, I let that video play because it's so easy. I don't have to come and try to say anything. It's easy for you to understand who your friend is, who your friends are as Africans. Okay? Ukraine needs the support of the European Union. Okay? But the European Union, in the guise that Ukraine is not yet a member of the EU, is not sending the EU army or whatever it is they're called to go and support the Ukrainian soldiers on ground to fight the Russians. But they sent their army to Libya to keep pushing and giving the firepower to destroy that nation. And of course, because the target was to assassinate Gaddafi. And of course, when the final one was going to be taken, they handed the gun over to a Libyan to do the honors, to make it look like his own people assassinated him. But we know what the truth is. Why is the EU not sending their troops to Ukraine to fight for people who look like them, the people who have blonde hair and blue eyes? But they are so quick to send their troops to Africa to decimate and destroy our land for the sake of taking the oil and the gold from Libya. So you must begin to look at these things and call it for what they are, understand it for what they are. Because even in secondary schools, in schools, even on social media, there is a ban. There is something that is out there for bullies. No one is allowed to bully any individual. Nobody. Once you do that, you're sanctioned one way or the other. But when it comes to the bullying of African states, nobody says anything. If you listen to what was said, President Putin, he was the only one who was able to raise his voice to ask a question: why is Gaddafi the target? So you begin to understand these things, okay? We need to come together as a people. If we did come together as a people, whether or not we are a nuclear nation or not, they will finally know that we have woken up and we now understand the game and we can control our destiny. Until we unite as Africans to stand up for ourselves, they will continue to take advantage of us. They will continue to bully us. They will continue to take everything that belongs to us. Just today, I was watching on television, the petrol pump price in America has gone up. And I saw grown men, grandfathers at the petrol station crying. They were weeping. They were weeping because petrol price had gone up because of the problem in Ukraine. And I couldn't help but wonder, I'm thinking, you guys have had the kind of lifestyle you've had at the expense of us Africans. And it hasn't even started. This is just a little pinch. And somebody is crying. He's crying even though he can get a job, he can find work, he can earn the money to buy the petrol. But we in Africa, who own the raw materials, we suffer. We don't have the petrol, or we don't have the gas, we don't have the money, we don't have the jobs. The young people don't have the jobs to be able to earn money, to be able to afford those things. This is just the beginning. Somebody is standing at the petrol station and crying. But what these people don't understand is that the lifestyle they've had in the West, in America or anywhere else, has been at the expense of us Africans. And without the pillaging of African states, they cannot have the kind of lifestyle that they have in Europe and America. And that's the honest truth. And just finally, like I said, today's broadcast is going to be so short. It's my birthday tomorrow. My family is waiting. Okay, because my birthday just seemed to fall on a Monday and it's not a good time to have a party. So I'm just going to go on, play the next video. And that next video, before I play it, I'm just going to take a quick read for some of the comments that have come in. And when I do play that video, one thing I want you to understand is that even when they look like they are in support of us, they are not in support of us. Because when their minds play out, when their minds come out from the words that they choose to use, we begin to understand they are not different from the ones who come out to tell us outright what they think about us. Okay? Let me take this read from Brighton Chikwanda Mbulu. Says Africans are good people, and that's why they take advantage of us. They killed Gaddafi, and no one has asked them about it, and no one sanctioned any of the three countries involved, USA, France, and Britain. Putin asked them who gave them the right to kill him, and they have not responded to him up to now. The weaknesses. Oh, I see. What did I do? The comment has just disappeared. Come on. All right. Right, I found you again. And no one has sanctioned any of the three countries involved, USA, France, and Britain. Putin asked them, why does it keep jumping? About it, and no one has sanctioned any of the three countries. Yeah, Putin asked them who gave them the right to kill him, and they have not responded to him up till now. The weakness for a black man is the leadership. We need people like Gaddafi, Julius Malema, Mugabe, Paul Kagame for Africa to become strong, he said. And Honorable Williams Ono Harpo says, it's shameful to see that with all the clear evidence of racism against Africans in Ukraine, not one African leader have been able to stand up in condemning this evil act. It's my earnest prayers and request for all African journalists to organize all African journalists conference and address all of these issues with invitation to all African presidents. I totally agree with you. That's a brilliant idea. Just in case they're acting like they are ignorant of what's going on, we should bring it to their attention. That is a good one. And WSR1 TV says they tried so many times to eliminate Gaddafi, but they couldn't until they employed our own Obama and he finished what they couldn't do. And now, boo-hoo, Obama says one of the regrets he has is going into Libya. Oh, crying over spilled milk. Too late. We thought you had more wisdom than was displayed in that regard. And Brighton Chikwanda Mbulu says, replying to Bright Mbulu, our leaders are mumu. They don't do what they are supposed to do as leaders. Some of our leaders might be mumu, not all of them are mumu. I will say so. Some of them will keep trying. It is not easy to stand up against evil, the evil powers that will not hesitate to take your life if you try to empower yourselves. But it's not going to stop us from trying. What we need, though, is unity. And that's what they don't want to see. Do you think the wars fought on the African continent today was something that was homegrown? No, it was fermented, it was orchestrated, it was scripted. Okay? And that's the reason why we keep fighting amongst ourselves. So until we get to that point of understanding, when they give us the guns and the bombs and whatever it is to blow up ourselves, and we say, no, these are people like us. This is what we should say to them. These are people like us, just like they've said about the Ukrainians. They say, these are people like us. Blonde hair, blue-eyed kind of people. In this case, these are people like us, black, beautiful people, black people with Afro hair. We cannot kill black people with African hair because these are people like us. We are the only people as a continent that refer to ourselves as brother and sister. How come we cannot understand? Why can't we see beyond the game, the tricks? So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly play the last video that I have. Just listen very keenly to President Joe Biden. Okay, listen to every single, it's a very short clip. Okay, listen to what he says, and then you understand how he thinks about Africans. Oh yes, I'll quickly get that up. Right, there you are.
We should challenge students in these schools to have advanced placement programs in these schools. We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
I need to play that again.
We should challenge students in these schools to have advanced placement programs in these schools. We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
Should I have played it again? Because this is what he said. He was making a point, saying that because they are poor does not mean they are not as bright. But guess what? Suddenly the opposite of poor is white. What does that mean to you? What does that say to you? It means that being poor is synonymous with being black or African, according to Joe Biden's mind. And that's the reason, even though he was trying to make a case, make it look like he cared, he was making a case publicly by saying that poor people are equally as bright. Just because they are poor does not mean they are not clever, intelligent people. However, when he says poor people are equally as bright, as intelligent, whatever the words he used, he said, as white people. So in his mind, he had a different idea that he was trying to suppress, but then it flipped out of his mouth. The opposite of white is poor, according to Joe Biden's explanation. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you for joining us. It's been such a wonderful broadcast today. I'm going to take this last read from WSR1 just before we run off. WSR1 says, of course, Putin explicitly advised Obama not to follow their bullish war-mongering attitude to invade any nation within his tenure, but Obama wasn't strong enough to abide by Putin's advice. Do not be deceived when you see them talk like they care about you. They don't. The only time we know that they truly care is when they allow us as Africans. I say allow because they've got the guns, they've got the power, they've got all these things. They will not allow us to choose even our own leaders. They impose these misleaders, as some people call them, the inept leaders that mount the offices, presidential offices on the African continent, and therefore they make us look stupid. Why is it that when we go to the West, we thrive, we do so good? When we go to the West, we go to study, we are one of the best brains. When we go, everywhere we go, we thrive. We're able, once we're given a fair playing ground, we're able, as continental Africans, we're able to compete and sometimes even outdo our peers who are from the other side or the other ethnic groups in the human race. And then when it comes to our continent, we're able not to even gain any kind of traction. Why? Because the leaders that they put there are puppet leaders. They are not the ones, we are not the ones who put them there. We're not the ones who put them there. The ones that we put there, we know what happened. We know the kind of journey they were taking us on until they were done away with. But it's not going to stop us. We're not going to be cowed. We're not going to be scared. And so on that note, I'm just going to say thank you so very much. One big family, Africa Rice TV. If you haven't liked, subscribed, followed us, please do. If you do on YouTube, press the bell button, like our videos as well. Okay, and I'll see you next weekend. And by the way, I need to apologize that we didn't come on last weekend as we had originally scheduled. The reason is because our guest at the very last minute had other pressing issues that she had to attend to. So we have decided that she will come back. And when she does come back, she's going to come back with even more information that we will be hearing for the first time, because she's privy to some kind of information in South Africa as regards African nations, African countries, and the bullies asking them to take in sides in this war that has nothing to do with us. I'll see you again next weekend, God willing. Bye-bye. I love you all.